your kid's graduating high school and they're wondering what to do with the rest of their life. Or maybe they're going to college. Maybe they're going to trade school. Maybe they're going to the military. Maybe they're going to work full time. Maybe they don't know what the heck they want to do. But today we got something interesting for you, an interesting proposition for your young one that's going to be graduating high school. And I know college, but you know what? I went to college and it's not for everybody. And actually, God forgive me, but I regret going to college. Anyways, what about the military? Well, we got a sergeant from the military. He did, Cedric, how many years did you do in the military altogether?
Altogether, 22 and a half years.
22 and a half years. He's very unique in the fact that he served in two branches, the Air Force and the Army. So he can speak to both things. Now, he's not speaking for everybody. He's only telling us his experience. But I wanted to talk to you today, and you're a perfect guest for this because, you know, here we go. It's May and June now coming up, and everyone's graduating. But I always feel like, you know, if a school brags, and here in New Jersey, they like to brag about 100% of our graduates from high school are going off to college. That's a fail. I'd be embarrassed about that stat because, come on, you have 200 graduates, 300 graduates, 400 graduates, 500 graduates, 1,000 high school graduates in a class, and everyone's going to college. Nobody wants to go to trade school. Nobody wants to go to the military. That's really odd. By the way, it would be very odd if 100% of the high school graduates went to trade school. I'd be like, that's odd. Nobody wants to go to college? 100% go to the military. That's odd. Nobody wants to go to college or trade school. So it should be, I'm not saying it has to be perfect thirds, but come on, 100% is going to college? That's a little odd. I mean, and let's talk about the military because you were a recruiter and I come from a family of military. I was not in the military myself, but I think, you know, parents, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong here, Sergeant, that parents hear military, they think, my kid's going to die. Now, that's stupid. That is insane. I did the numbers actually before I got on the show, and you know this, Sergeant. But most people in the military, I don't care what time of American history it is, but most people in the military, especially in modern day military,
Right.
are not frontline. They're not gonna shoot a gun. They're gonna be support staff. So now, what does that mean? I ran the numbers. In the past 20 years, that's including Iraq Part 1, Iraq Part 2, Afghanistan, and other battles that we've had. The odds, the percentage of men and women that died in warfare, in actual war, when you count all the military who served in the past 20 years, is less than 1%. It's 0.1%. Less than 1%. Because overwhelmingly, most of the military, Coast Guard, Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force are support staff. So now, wait, it gets better. So put your mind around that. In your lifetime, your child has a greater chance of dying in his or her car, in a car crash. Think about that. So don't buy your kid a car. Don't let him drive ever, because there's a higher chance of dying in their lifetime in a car crash than if they join the military. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. Go look it up. Prove me wrong. So you have a 1.0% chance of dying in a car crash in your lifetime. You have a 0.1% chance, if you join the military, of dying in battle. So you have to want to fight frontline, first off. So you have to want to go put yourself in that position. And we do need men and women to do that. But you don't. So I think I should be the damn recruiter, man. I mean, so like people really, yeah, you know, it's a misnomer. It is disingenuous. It's not educated when a parent thinks that their kid's going to die in battle. Again, don't buy your kid a car then. Just don't, because they have higher odds of dying in a car. Don't buy them a car. Don't do it. So, Sergeant, what say you? You're going to talk to a kid. Let's play a little role play. I probably did your job. But kid comes up to you. You're a recruiter. And maybe they're thinking about college or thinking about military, thinking about trade school. Maybe they're going to college. You can go to college and go to military too. Sure. What do you tell a young man or woman today that is graduating high school and they talk to you?
So it really depends, right? Like typically what I do is I look and see what they're interested in doing. Do they have a plan already set up? Like, do they Do they have any idea of what the next move is for them after high school? And a lot of times the answer is no. Usually, what I try to explain to them is the military, although it may not necessarily be for everybody, it has something for everybody, right? So, what that means is you don't necessarily have to join the military. But if you wanted to join the military, undoubtedly, there's more than likely some sort of pathway you could take advantage of. So I would ask them, like, hey, are you planning on going to college? Do you have any schools in mind that you want to go to? Do you have any majors or any degree plans that you want to go into or chase after with college? Have you applied for scholarships? Did you earn any scholarships? Are you getting any athletic scholarships? Are there any pathways for you to go to school that doesn't require you to end up 40, 50, 60, $100,000 in debt? Or mom or dad being in debt, right?
Yep.
And it's not a scare tactic question. It's a legitimate question. Because that is something that you have to think about when it comes to college. Now, if it's somebody who, say, for example, he's the star quarterback of the football team and he has a full ride scholarship to, Ohio State University or something along those lines, or a baseball scholarship, lacrosse, or even an academic scholarship. So if you have this already lined up for you, then, hey, you know what? This might actually be the best route for you to take. I don't invest my time in trying to talk someone out of a good idea or a good plan. It's actually the opposite. For me, the way I went about it is I would talk to them and try to help them figure out which plan would be best for them. So now, on the other hand, if you have someone who wasn't necessarily athletic inclined, or maybe had probably middle of the road academically, so like they met the grade, but they probably didn't earn one of those prestigious scholarships, or they're not really school oriented, didn't want to go to college, right? But unsure of what they want to do next. Well, now the military is something that's very feasible that could actually help you along the way. That's something that could actually give you a career path that you can go into. And the beautiful part about the military is you don't necessarily have to already know how to do that job. They're going to provide the training for you. So it's something that could actually be a stepping stone to whatever is next for you in life. You don't have to be in for 20 years or 22 years like me. If you want to, great. But if not, hey, it's a good pathway for you to get some good training and get those benefits to help you pay for college down the road if you want to go to school.
100%. And, to your point, right? I have friends that actually had college scholarships and were going to college, but they wanted to add, in addition to, be in the military. So it doesn't even have to be either or. You can say, hey, I'm going to grade school and I'm going to the military. I'm doing reserve, or I'm doing National Guard, or I'm going to do full-time military, but I'll go to college also, or later, or whatever it is. So that's the beautiful thing about the military. It's like, it doesn't have to be either or.
Absolutely.
So, and by the way, I think we forget this too. You're serving our country. I mean, like, it's not like, oh, do you want to be part of, like, I don't know, the traveling crew? We go to beaches and hang out. Like, you do something very noble. And I always say, without a military, a military is a country's immune system. You need a military. I don't care what country it is. You don't have a military, you don't have a country. So it's the immune system of a country, and it's a noble thing to do. And again, you don't have to sign up to go fight frontline. You can be like, hey, I want to be logistics. Well, I have my grandfather, father, and brother were in the military. My father chose to go frontline and duke it out in Vietnam. My brother in the 90s chose support staff in the Navy, so he didn't get frontline. But it was their choices, And my grandfather in World War II chose to be support, so he didn't get frontline. All three of them came home. But my point is, you have to want to be frontline, and then know that. And that's fine too. We need men and women to want frontline and do that. And so there's a space for everybody, and no basic. Your kid's not dying. Now, friends that have died in the military, I'm sure.
Right.
I have friends that have died in the military, and may they rest in peace, and thank you for their service sincerely.
Right.
But they died because they wanted to be in that frontline action.
Right.
And again, very noble. May they rest in peace. But it wasn't like shock. Again, you have to. This is, I think, parents misunderstand. It's like, no. I will say this though, to parents' worries, and this is something I think has to be addressed. You go to basic training, and what's in basic training? Every soldier learns how to kill. right, you're working with a machine gun, M16. You're learning how to do basic hand-to-hand combat. So it's not a game, So this is not fooling around, because
Sure.
if need be, excuse my French, if the shit gets real, hey, we trained you in basic.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, serving in the military, you are primarily, before anything else, you are the first line of defense for the country. So
right.
Yeah, that comes with the territory for sure.
Right. So, I don't want to, BS parents either. However, again, to be truthful, you have a greater chance of dying in your car, because most support staff. So, to give the whole picture. And by the way, thank you for your service to our country too. So
thank you for the support. Good sir.
Yeah, man. So, but yeah, I think parents need to know. So let me ask you this question.
Okay.
So what were the biggest concerns? I think we already addressed this, but what were the biggest concerns from parents when you would speak to them about the military?
So, it's kind of interesting, because I mean, I was in the Army. Now, of course, I was in the Air Force prior to that, but during my time as a recruiter, they didn't know that. They just saw the Army uniform. So as soon as they saw me in the uniform, it was, oh God, they're going to send my kid to war. That was always the first thought, right? I don't want my kid to go to war. I don't want my kid to be in harm's way. I don't want my kid to lose their freedom. And then, of course, a lot of them weren't really upfront about it. Some of them were very blunt, especially a lot of the moms. They were like, I want to have positive control over what my kid does, right? So it was, having to come with the terms of the possibility of your child leaving the nest, but not only leaving the nest, potentially traveling somewhere across the world and potentially going in harm's way, right? Now, as you had already pointed out, the likelihood and the chances of someone being in combat and or dying in combat are extremely low in comparison to, say, that of, a motor vehicle accident or something along those lines. Now, granted, having said that, the risk still exists. So it's not as if we could pretend that that's not true. So it's one of those things that I had to be sensitive of when it came to talking to the parents, to let them know, hey, look, that is a possibility, of course, if you're going to serve in the military. However, if your biggest fear is, I don't want my kid to die in a blaze of glory in a firefight, have them not pick a combat job.
Right.
And more than 90% of the armed forces is non-combat related. What I always try to explain to the parents is this: a lot of these parents have never been on military installations, right? So the first thing I say to them is this: okay, if you look at a military installation as a city, right, or a town, okay, every town has to function, but they need a whole lot of different things for that town to actually sustain, right? So what do you need? You need a police force, right? You need a fire department. You need a hospital. You need doctors. You need medics. You need mechanics. You need cooks who can cook the food. You need people who can clean. You need all of these different things for a city to sustain. Well, if regular civilians can't get on base, who provides those services? So those are jobs and career fields that we have for the military, for those people to join and be trained on how to do that, right? So when I break it to them that way, a lot of times they're like, I never really thought about it that way. But that's the very real reality of it, right? So once you get into that conversation, they tend to loosen up a little bit. But that first initial impact, it's automatically, I don't want my kid to go to war. I don't want my kid to leave the nest. I want to make sure that they're safe and they do what I want them to do. Right, so that's usually what I run into.
100%. Yeah, that's interesting. And it's funny. What I was going to say is, I would say, if anything, the death argument really doesn't hold water, but this argument probably does. And that is, if a student or a parent or the student says, look, I understand I have less than a 1% chance of dying. That's not my concern. Sarge, here's my concern. I don't like to be physical. I don't like working out. I don't like running. I don't like being part of a group that has structure. That's just not me. That would be a hard sell then, because it's like, okay, fair enough. You know what? Then this might not really be for you, because you may say, I want to be a doctor or a logistics expert or fly a plane, jet plane, but I just don't like working out. I don't like PT. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't do well in that environment. Then I think that's a much bigger hurdle than I'm afraid to die. I don't know how you get around that one, because but anyways.
when it comes to those type of conversations, and I've had to have those as well, right? Um, you just have to be honest with them. Like, hey, okay, so you don't want to work out. You don't want, to have structure. You don't want to have these constraints, requirements, restrictions. Okay. With anything in life that you want to do, there's going to be sacrifices you have to make. There's going to be structure. You're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have time management. These are things that you learn along the way, and the military can help you get into that. If you want that training, you want those benefits, you want that career path, you want that travel, all of these different opportunities that the military can provide, then that is what you have to do, right? That's your end of the bargain. That's your end of the deal. You have to stay in physically fit and good shape. You have to learn how to defend and protect yourself, which, by the way, all of these things are positives in the long run, right?
Well, we have my counter. I'm sorry, good.
Yeah, so, if you're willing to do these things, all you're really essentially doing is finding out how much better you can be of a better version of yourself and getting benefits along the way. So, yeah.
Yeah, listen, and maybe it's better I'm not a recruiter, because my retort to that would be like, all right, buddy, listen, you want to be a fat, lazy slob and do nothing with your life? That's cool. Cool. Hey, you know what? All the best, okay? Let me know how that works out. And I just be like, next, but I know you can't do it. But anyways, but that being said, to piggyback on what you just said, so what did all of your years in the military do for you? Like, what did you get out of it personally?
Oh man. So there's I guess there's a bunch of different directions I could go with this, right? So like, where do I begin? The first thing is there was a girl that I liked, and I really wanted to prove to her that I could take care of and support her. Joining the military gave me the opportunity to actually, get that house and be the head of household and support and take care of her, because I was brought up in an old school Southern conservative household where the male takes the lead and whatnot, right? So there's that. I wanted to make sure that she got insurance and she was supported and taken care of. We were able to have children, right? That's another thing. The cost of having a child, just medical bills alone, exceeds $100,000, right? The birth of our children and all of that good stuff cost about $7. My older daughter, it was a little bit different. It cost about $50, and that's because we were in Germany, and I got my wife a private room, because when you live off base in Germany, they have what's called a birthing center, so there's multiple people there. But for a private room, it costs $50. Nice. So there's that, right? As long as you're in the military and you have these dependents, their medical coverage and all of that good stuff is well taken care of. Your medical coverage is taken care of, vision, dental, all of the basic necessities, right? But those are things that can be very expensive. Those are covered, right? So your essentials are taken care of. If you're single, hey, you essentially have, like if you look at it from a college perspective, right? You have dorm rooms that's pretty much given to you. So you stay in a dorm room, you have no rent, you have no utilities, you have a place to stay, you have free food next door with a cafeteria. So all of the essentials that you need are taken care of. If you're married, you have military housing that's provided to you. So if you don't want to live off base in the economy and you want the safety and security of being on base on the installation, you can do that. In fact, I'm retired and we live on base in military housing. So my kids go to school in a Department of Defense school where they're safe and don't have to worry about any of that other stuff that, some of the unfortunate realities that are going on, right? So those are all benefits. Travel. I'm from, middle of nowhere, Mississippi. I always was fascinated with Japan. As a kid, I always wanted to see, Europe and travel the world. My first military assignment was Cadence Air Base, Okinawa, Japan. My second military assignment was Canberra, Schweinfurt, Germany. My third assignment was Honolulu, Hawaii. I went to vacation and I got to go there for 3 years, and they covered the cost of moving, right? So I got to see the world. I got to take my wife and my kids there. I just completed my bachelor's degree last year, information technology project management. I'm currently in the process of doing my master's degree in business, and that cost me $0. In fact, I get paid every month for going to school. So like all of these different things are benefits that I got along the way from serving in the military. And there's more, but but for time constraints, we'll stop there. There's a lot there.
Right. And again, you're doing a noble thing. You're protecting us, our country. I mean, so there's a lot of great layers to it. So now I know everybody's unique to themselves and everyone has their own experience, but what was one of the challenging things for you about the military? Because a lot of good stuff, but I'm sure there's some hurdles. But what was one of the things that was like, oh, this is a little bit of a thing, but you know.
Yeah, I guess one of the first things is obviously, and I used to tell people this when I was a recruiter. One of the biggest life changing decisions you could ever make is immediately after high school, right? So you're leaving school, you're also leaving home, and you're transitioning into the military. That is a huge change. The only two changes that I would say that would be more significant than me joining the military was becoming a husband and becoming a father. Aside from that, the military is a huge change, and we're all afraid of the unknown, right? Yeah. Until you experience it. But you're essentially going out of your shell of being that civilian who is unaware of any of this military lifestyle, joining this fraternity and starting to become a part of something that's bigger than yourself. I know I sound like a commercial when I say that, but essentially you're having to break yourself down to build yourself up to become a part of this, right? So like the structure, the learning discipline, because you may think you're disciplined, you may think, man, I have time management, I have this, I have that. But once you go into basic training, they are really going to break it down to the smallest minute detail to ensure that you're able to keep yourself up to date on these things, right? And that can be challenging for a lot of people. And for me, it was because prior to the military, I was used to just kind of winging it, So that was one of the bigger challenges for me, learning structure. But once you get it, it's kind of easy to keep up with it.
Yeah. No, interesting. So now you, like I said, you're unique. You're in the Air Force and Army. So, and not to, I know that we can go do a whole separate show about this, but just quick. I guess, what was your experience, Army versus Air Force? Like, what was the, I guess, one big difference you took away from both services?
Well, to be honest with you, the Air Force and the Army, they're both a part of the same mission. Like all branches from the DoD, they all contribute to the same mission. There's obviously a sibling rivalry with each necessarily, claiming to be superior or better than or whatever. Big brother and all that good stuff. But I guess for me, from and this is just from my experience, I can't speak for everyone. I can just tell you from my experience. From my experience, right? The Air Force had a tendency to be more focused on like technical precision. So if you are more of a lone wolf type individual where you're used to, kind of sort of operating in your own capacity, there are some team oriented things, but if you're hyper focused on, achieving what you need to achieve by contributing to your specific part of the team, that's kind of where I got from the Air Force from my experience. Right. The Army is more tactical based. You have a lot more, cohesion, team unity, I guess mass participation, but it's also a larger branch, and that's kind of more so what that mission is catered to. So that's kind of how I would say that would be. But again, that's from my personal experience.
Yeah, I totally get it. Everyone's different.
Someone else's experience could be completely different. So
yeah.
No, but that's kind of what I noticed from my experience.
Yeah, and what's funny? Everybody that I know that has been in the military said they had a great experience and they would do it over again. And and my father went to war, like close quarter combat, like slugging it out, and he was like, "Yeah, I would do it over again." Like my brother, my grandfather, my friends. I mean, like they all had, and they're not gonna say it was easy, but they were, you get that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that you can't get working in an office or going to college, joining a frat, and you're doing it for a higher cause, something bigger than yourself, the country, the freedoms that we enjoy. It's so layered in a good way, and yeah. So, in closing, what would be the biggest misconception people have about the military? You think?
I think the biggest misconception, and it's kind of ironic because it's piggybacking off of what you just said. I think the biggest misconception that people have about the military is that everyone's experience is the same. Right. There are some people who will tell you it was the worst thing they ever did. They should have never done this. They hate it. Don't do it. stay away from it, right?
Right.
But then on the flip side of the coin, you have someone say it's the absolute best decision I've ever made in my life. If you don't serve, then you're ruining your life and wasting out on this, that, whatever, and the third. And neither is necessarily the correct answer, but there's also no real wrong answer either, right? Everyone's experience is different. So I would say, and this is what I would tell people when I was in recruiting, you know, don't just go based off of the word of someone else. Don't even just take my word for it, right? Let me give you the information that I can to help you make that decision. But do your own research and your own due diligence. Figure out if what we have to offer is something that's in line with what you want to do. But yeah, to answer your question, I would just say, you know, everybody's experience is pretty much different. So don't just take one person's word for it and assume that speaks for everybody in the uniform.
Right. And to your point, I started off the show saying, I regret going to college.
Right.
And what do you think? Everyone's going to say college is the way? I mean, we have millions of Americans on their knees begging for loan forgiveness and regretting going to college. And, you know, although I would say I don't hear that so much from trade school people, and I don't hear that so much from military people. But again, I get it. Some people might say, don't go to trade school, don't go to military, and don't go to college. I started off the show.
And the military is kind of a good hybrid, too, because in the military, you can learn a trade and you can go to college for free.
Right. And by the way, you don't have to join the military full time. You can do National Guard, do reserve. You can kind of put your foot in. And then, because I have friends of mine that did that. They started at 17 in the Army Reserve, and they loved it so much that they went all the way up to captain and did like something like 30 years or something like that. But my point is, I mean, so it doesn't have to be black and white. You can do, hey, you know what? I'll start off reserve and see, and I can do, doesn't have to be Marine Corps Reserve. You can do whatever, National Guard, whatever it is. And then, you know, go.
Yeah, you have the reserve for all of the branches. You have the Air National Guards, you know, so you have these, you know, what we like to call weekend warriors on the active duty side. But it's really the best of both worlds, because you get that opportunity to become a part of that, because we are small. We are smaller than 1% of the U.S. population. So you're a part of a fraternity that almost nobody is a part of, right?
Yep.
Everybody knows someone who's been related to somebody who's in the military, but not everybody's been in the military, right? I can tell you, everyone always told me I thought about it, but not too many people actually did it. To be a part of that, on top of serving your country, having that feeling of patriotism and pride, and the benefits, because, you know, if I'm being all the way honest with you, the majority of people who served in the military, most of them didn't do this specifically to be a patriot. It was an added bonus, and it was sweet.
Of course.
But, you know, if we're being 100% honest, you know, that's just kind of the truth of the matter. But at the end of the day, regardless of the motivation for the person choosing to serve, they served. And that was why I always appreciated those, you know, brothers and sisters that we have who served with us. Yeah.
Well said. And, you know, don't forget, folks, you don't have to join the military at 18 or 19. Maybe you want to join at 20. Maybe you want to join at 21, 22, 23. I have a friend that joined in his 30s.
30.
And he said to me, I wish I would have joined sooner. And he's an Army Ranger. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, hey, better late than never. But I mean, so yeah, you don't have to feel pressure like, oh, I'm 18. I have to do it right now. Take a year off, get a job, think about it. I mean, they talk about the Navy SEAL who, Robert, I forgot his last name, but he killed Osama bin Laden. And he joined this Navy in his like early 20s. He was like just working for years. And he's like, you know what? I'm 20 something. Let me look into the Navy. You know, so yeah, I mean, there's no pressure that you have to join right after high school, but you know, I think it's worth having a conversation, and you know, give the recruiter a conversation at least, and then have a conversation with trade school, have a conversation with college. I took one of my nephews. We did it all in one day. We went to Air Force recruiter, college recruiter, and trade school recruiter, and he got a chance to talk to three. And you know what? He chose none of them. He's choosing to work full time. Whatever. But at least have a conversation and see where it goes, you know.
And that was always my biggest thing, right? My approach, especially when I was in recruiting, I would go to the high schools and I would talk to the students inside of, you know, like their career centers. And I would say, hey, listen, I don't necessarily want to have a one-on-one with you. I want you to come by and bring your mom, bring your dad, bring your girlfriend, bring all of your loved ones who you know will say this is a bad idea. And let's all have that conversation. you having that conversation is not an obligation for you to join. It's
Right.
an opportunity for you to hear what opportunities are there in front of you should you choose to join. It's for you to learn if it's a good idea for you, if it works for you, if it fits into what you want to do, or if it's not. And a lot of the times, oftentimes, it turns out to be almost exactly what they want, but you have to have that conversation.
100%. And I think modern day times with social media and YouTube, like this program, people can also get added information that they couldn't get 20 years ago, 10 years ago. So, so now they have the advantage of social media and internet, and they can listen to this interview and listen to someone like yourself who has served us and hear me who I'm like, I regret college, but anyways, like something to think about.
You were mad about that college thing, man.
Yeah, because I ran the numbers and I want to kick myself because I paid for my own college cash as I went. I worked like 5 jobs like a mule. And I was like, I don't even use my college degree. And I'm just like, you know what? If I would have taken my money that I spent myself, no help from my parents, no help from the government, nothing, I would have taken that money, put it in a Roth IRA or the S&P 500. I did the numbers. As of last year, I would have had like $982,000 in cash just by not going to college, letting it sit, not even adding to what I spent. And I was like, tears coming down my face. I'm like,
right, yeah. No, that's a tough realization too, that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, God bless you want to go to college, but at least give the military a look, at least give trade school a look, because God knows you gave college a look, folks. So
and I'll say this too, right? There is something to be said about how critical people are of the service recruiters, but none of them really tend to have that type of diligence when it comes to a lot of these institutions in academia that's going to cost this kid hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right. 100%. Right.
Yeah.
That's what yeah. And the average American pays off their college loan at 42 years old.
Right.
Wow. And again, all I'm saying is, folks, at least talk to somebody in the military. You don't have to join right on the spot. Just say I'm talking. Just I want to get some information, recruiter. That's all. That's it. Just do that at the minimum. I mean, and that's it. You don't want to join, don't join. But at least talk to all three.
Yeah. A conversation is not a commitment to obligation.
That's it, folks. So, Sarge, thank you for making time. Anything before we part ways that you want to impart on us?
No, I mean, I enjoyed the conversation, and, this has been fun, and I'd like to look forward to the next time we have another convo.
You're a good guest, man. So you're going to keep on getting calls from me, and you'll be like, damn, he's calling me again? We had the music, we're doing that. But thank you again for your service. Thank you for your time. All right, folks, like, subscribe. Tony's Topics. I'm signing us off in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.